Howdy everyone, and here's a good question. What happens when you take an inexpensive ultra-wide-angle full-frame camera lens that's fantastically sharp in the middle of its images but a bit softer in the full-frame corners and put it onto a camera with a smaller APS-C sized sensor, like the interesting Canon RF 16mm f2.8 on a Canon EOS R7 camera? Well, I think we need to know, because if the famous APS-C sweet spot advantage comes into play well enough, then this could be a bit of a dream lens for Canon's new EOS R10 and R7 APS-C RF mount cameras. I kept hold of my copy of this nice 16mm lens from when I reviewed it, unusually, as it's going to make a handy emergency ultra-wide angle lens for if I'm shooting weddings or anything else that might need ultra-wide angle, but to me, this thing looks really at home on my R7 there, moulding right into the rest of the camera. At 16mm, it offers a noticeably wider angle field of view than either of Canon's RFS zoom lenses, as you can see. And also, its maximum aperture of f2.8 is considerably brighter than that of the 18 to 150mm kit lens, and over a full f-stop brighter than the rather mediocre 18 to 45mm lens. As you can see, that means the 16mm lens offers you faster shutter speeds in darker situations, and noticeably more out-of-focus backgrounds. It'll be an amazingly simple lens, useful for all kinds of situations, and anyone could shoot with it, including my 3-year-old daughter who is behind the camera for this one. So on one of Canon's new RF mount APS-C cameras, this could be an incredibly useful little lens for everyday shooting with a gorgeously wide angle and small size, yet if ever you decided to upgrade to a full frame camera, it would be ready for action there too. Nice. If you want a full review of this lens with information about its build quality and so on, then take a look down in the description below. I'm going to assume that most Canon shooters know a bit about it already, and I've shown you a few sample pictures already in this video of how its images will look on an APS-C camera. Today I just want to see how it performs on a very challenging APS-C sized sensor of a Canon EOS R7 camera with its incredible 32.5 megapixel resolution. See how well that sweet spot advantage comes into play this time. And while I'm at it, I'll compare it to Canon's 18 to 45mm kit lens, but I'll only drop that lens in when we've stopped down to f4. At f2.8 in the middle, we see good but not excellent sharpness. Contrast is quite good though, and over in the corners, I was a little disappointed. The image hasn't completely fallen apart, but there's definitely a good deal of softness here. I think the APS-C sweet spot advantage is in play here, but it's counteracted by the sheer brutality of the 32.5 megapixel sensor's demands. But we can note that there are no vignetting problems here. The corners look decently bright due to the lens's full frame image circle cutting out any real vignetting. Well, anyway, let's top that 16mm lens down to f4, and now we'll introduce the Canon RFS 18 to 45mm zoomable kit lens, whose maximum aperture of f4.5 at its widest angle is just a touch darker. In the image corners, the zoomable kit lens seems just a touch sharper, but the 16mm prime lens has noticeably more contrast. Back in the middle, both lenses show excellent sharpness, with the 16mm lens having picked up a little. Again, the 16mm lens shows slightly better contrast here. Stop down to f8 and there's no real improvement in the middle of the image on either lens or over in the corners. And stop down as far as f11 or even f16 for quite a lot of softness to emerge from the physical effects of diffraction. Gah, I was hoping that Canon's neat little RF 16mm lens would work like a dream here. On the R7 camera, its performance is adequate for its price, but unfortunately my dream of the sweet spot advantage just didn't quite fully get through. The lens's area of central sharpness wasn't quite as broad as I had hoped, and the R7's sensor, well, just too ridiculously demanding. Still though, the lens is delivering pretty good contrast here, nice punchy images at least, with still good central sharpness. What else could we test here? As I've shown already, the lens can get you more out of focus backgrounds than Canon's RFS kit lenses, which is a nice little bonus, although you'll rarely be able to get deeply out of focus backgrounds here. When you do, the quality of its bokeh is still very nice. A big advantage of this lens is its macro capability, which will be emphasized by the APS-C sized sensor of Canon's R7 or R10 cameras. Compared to Canon's 18-45 or 18-150mm kit lenses, both of which I'm showing here, the 16mm lens can get you even closer to your subject, and its close-up image quality is far better. Stop the 16mm lens down to f4 and it looks even a touch sharper again. So that is a lovely advantage to have. This inexpensive little lens offers some excellent macro opportunities on an APS-C camera. Flaring tests and so on can still be found in a full review, link in the description below. Overall, if you decide to fit this 16mm lens onto one of Canon's APS-C RF mount cameras, you'll have an optic you can carry around with you everywhere for some gorgeous wide-angle photos, which offers a decently bright maximum aperture of f2.8, as well as very good contrast and stupendous close-up image quality. And as I mentioned, if you upgrade to full frame in the future, it'll be ready for you there too. What you still won't get though is the corner sharpness I was really hoping for. Certainly on the EOS R7, that crazy 32.5 megapixel sensor is just way too demanding. Well, if you want me to test more lenses on the R7, let me know in the description below. It's interesting to see what does and doesn't work on that high resolution sensor, and I want to take yet another opportunity to thank my Patreon supporters for their dedication. Check it out in the description below, as supporters help me to keep these reviews trucking on and get all kinds of exclusive bonus content too.